Well, are you all ready to start?
Sure.
I guess.
And we'll just see how this goes. Okay,
We can stop and start if we need.
whatever. Three, two, one. Hi, everybody. Welcome into another edition of the Macks. It's, as always, Maggie Davis, Jack Pilgrim, Zack Gagan. Today, we are truly repping the brand because last week we realized that Jack Pilgrim wears the same outfit every week. So Zack and I decided to have a little bit of fun. And of course, Jack couldn't handle the heat. We roasted him too hard. So he's no longer repping, but we still are. Don't worry. Jackman, what happened? Where's your shirt? I thought you only had one shirt for media opportunities. Where is it?
You guys made fun of me too much, and I got sick and tired of it, so I decided to take my ball and go home and wear my own clothes this time.
Wow.
Bullying does work.
Bullying works. That's
Bullying
what
does
happened.
work.
So guess what? You get me in a red Patriot shirt. Enjoy that.
And
Can't
whatever is on your
do
head as well.
And what?
That
What-
thing that's on his head as well.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there, but we should say we are on the edge of our seats, obviously sitting on pins and needles, trying to understand how SportsCenter doesn't know how to go live on Instagram, waiting for this Kennedy Chandler announcement. And we started this recording about 17 minutes ago, thinking that we would know by now where this guy is officially going to school. We thought he would have had time to jump on and make a quick announcement and tell everyone where he's going, but they can't figure out an Instagram live feature.
There's no they. There's no they. This is Paul Biancardi learning technology for the first time. I cannot believe they didn't do a test run with this. They are on attempt 4 now. Actually, he just ended attempt 4. We're on attempt 5 of him starting a live broadcast, staring into the screen, not knowing what's going on, with random celebrities like John Moran in the comments saying, dude, what are you doing? And him just going, I don't see anything on my screen. I don't see anything on my screen.
I
And
mean, there are thousands of people tuned in.
there was
watching the announcement.
the last time he was on, there were over 6,000 people watching Paul Biancardi awkwardly smile at the screen by himself.
And the noise he's making is just tapping the screen over and over again, like he's just trying to will it to work by touching his screen. And that's not how Instagram works.
He is that old guy, just unplug it and plug it back in mentality that if he keeps doing, 16 lives, that one of the times is going to work to have this request be accepted. But whatever they're doing right now is being failed miserably. I can't believe they didn't do a test run with some social media intern or whatever. At this point, just let Kennedy Chandler go on his own Instagram and just commit by himself, because it's very apparent that Paul Biancardi doesn't know what he's doing. Great guy. He's been in the basketball business forever, but in terms of updated social media presence and, trying to do new hip things, it's just not working for him.
How old would you guess Paul is?
I don't know, probably 55 maybe.
Too old.
Small, solid 55 probably.
Be running SportsCenter's Instagram live.
The best part is that he keeps saying it's technical difficulties, and we've all said it. We're like, these are not technical difficulties. This is just user error. You're just doing it wrong.
Yeah, this is just fun. So we were going to wait until afterward to start the show, but because it's taking so long, we're like, screw it. It might be funnier for us to just do a live play-by-play of Paul Biancardi doing this. That might make the whole show. Forget our previously announced topics. We're going to just do a whole live breakdown of Paul Biancardi trying to get a Kennedy Chandler commitment video.
What's the
Right.
step?
So as soon as the SportsCenter Instagram is back up and running with some sort of information, we can get back to it. But we also, of course, wanted to touch on today a lot of things, starting with college football and all of the crazy news that's been going down over the past week or so since our last episode. And this week's episode for us is coming out a little bit later just because it was hard for us to find time for all three of us to get together, but also because there's been so much news and so much is changing so quickly that I feel like if we had recorded this a couple days ago, we might have had a totally different take on everything that was going down. So I'm actually kind of glad we're recording this on a Friday. We've had a full week to sort of digest this news, especially with the Big Ten, the Pac-12, and do we have Instagram Live up and running again?
We have Kennedy Chandler starting his own Instagram Live.
Ooh.
Now approaching 2,000.
Okay.
He has a full hat ceremony. He has 5 hats on the table. Let's do a little breakdown here. North Carolina at the far left hat, Duke left center, Tennessee smack dab in the middle. That's telling, very telling. Kentucky right to the right of it. It's technically the seat right in front of him. And then Memphis in the far left, or I guess far right on our end. You might be able to see if you are watching this. You can, you can see the hat display right. Oh, we got Paul. Oh, yeah. All right, Paul.
Okay.
All right, let's do this. He's going to end up at Tennessee. I'm 99.9% certain.
I just want to see.
What's it been like the last few months with the virtual?
Oh, now we're gonna have a whole.
Oh man!
Let's have him put the stupid hat on.
It's just
You're already 22 minutes late. I hate these announcements. I'm sorry. They all take way too long. We all usually know where they're going already.
Although it's only been like 30 seconds, really.
No, but it's been 22 minutes of everyone waiting.
Yeah, it should have been long over.
We got Paolo Banchero in the comments. We got John Morant in the comments. We got Mark Williams, Duke signee. It's loaded. Slam High School Sports. I mean, it's a loaded broadcast.
It's hilarious because this one has more views than the Sports Center one.
100. It's working. It's working. Bryce Hopkins, who is very getting. We could also talk about him. Kentucky's getting spiked interest over the last couple days. Recent contact. That's big. Oh, talking about whose game they're studying and all that good stuff. All right, we'll watch the hat ceremony when that time comes. But let's keep going with what we were previously talking about, because I'm sure the listeners. This is just great radio, great podcast. I bet.
Oh,
yeah, just us watching something on Instagram.
Yeah, this is awesome.
This is
for those that are still tuned in, let's continue.
Let's continue with some college football talk. What has it been like for you all the past couple of days, seeing all of this college football news come out and trying to come to terms with the leagues that have already canceled, and then sort of the anticipation of, are these other leagues, including the SEC, going to have to make the same decision, or are we going to see them go in a different direction? Because for me, I feel like it has just been a roller coaster of a week trying to decide and trying to sort of come to terms with whatever was going to happen to college football this season. What has it been like for you all?
Have you ever seen, remember the Office episode where Michael gets 3 vasectomies? Remember that? Snap. That's what this is. Just tell me what's going to happen. I don't care at this point what the final decision is. I just need to know what I need to plan for. Do I need to, plan another 4 months by myself in my apartment, or do I need to figure out a way to, cover college football? I need some, just for planning and just for my own sanity. I just need to know what the heck is going on. And I think we're starting to get a little bit more clarity. I think with, it kind of seems like they're, SmackDown divided, with the Big 10 and Pac-12 being the two that are going, no, we're postponing to the spring. And then obviously the SEC, ACC, and Big 12 kind of saying we're going to keep moving forward, and we'll see how it goes from there. So it seems like we're going to get some semblance of a college football season. We just don't know how or what the method is, but it seems like they're going to still approach it as if the season's going.
I like that Office reference there. You could almost say that Jan is like the coronavirus in that situation. Honestly, that's kind of like her character throughout the whole show. She plays just like a virus.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, we're getting a commitment. Are we ready?
Yes.
All right. He's reaching down.
Reaching for the hat.
Into a bag.
What's he doing? Why is he not just
Tennessee? He's a volunteer. We're going to have to hate him for the next 2, 3, 4 years, however long he's
the shirts.
See. Vol Nation. All of them had Vol Nation on the back. Man, look at that.
All right. Well,
heartbreaking.
That was a fun 25 minutes, but I feel like we can turn off the Instagram Live now.
We're good. All right.
We're not
Tennessee.
That was a lot of suspense for me.
Good. It was worth every second.
Obviously.
And every Instagram Live attempt. All right.
It really wasn't.
Zack's take.
I'm glad that Kennedy figured it out, though. Finally, a real, someone that understands social media. But yeah, you all know me. I came in kind of as a pessimist from the start about the whole season, going to have it or not. Even though the NBA bubble's still been working, I'm always, in the back of my head, you got to keep that possibility open that things might just crumble in the blink of an eye. And that's kind of what has happened here with college football. Poor Maggie was the text I received from Maggie that day, where you would have thought that it was more serious than just no football or something like that. So I'm trying to keep myself calm, cool, and collected because I still don't see how the SEC and with the ACC can end up having a season without the other two big conferences or three.
Power three, baby. Forget Power Five. We got Power Three.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I agree with you at this point. Like, I don't even know what I think anymore because it's like I could truly see it going either way. Like, I'm glad that they didn't make these decisions. Like, just because one conference decided it was one big roll of bad news in one day. I mean, I do think the SEC, and I don't know when the other conferences were scheduled to all start, but the SEC has over a month before the first game, and they've been practicing, they've been weightlifting, conditioning, all that stuff. At least in the SEC, they've been testing. We haven't seen any teams really have these huge outbreaks to be really concerned about. And I know you don't want to have to wait for that to happen and sort of react versus just protect from the start. Obviously, that from their perspective is probably where they're coming from. But to me, I don't know what changed. And I know a lot of people have sort of had this take already, but I don't know what changed within those couple of days between these schools announcing their schedules and posting all the season's potential matchups or whatever. And then 1 to 3 days later calling off the whole season. And so for me, we haven't seen any drastic changes like that in the SEC. So I'm glad that Greg Sankey and the rest of his sort of department and whoever is working on this decision can figure this out and give it the time it needs. Sorry, I'm going to put my computer on Do Not Disturb. That was really loud.
It's all right. Yeah, I think that heart issue that has kind of come out, and I think it was in the Big Ten's report that they were the ones that kind of found that there's a long-term kind of health issue that was found in, I believe, 5 Big Ten players. But so that, I mean, that would make total sense on their part if they said, all right, well, obviously the way we're going about this right now is not going to work. We need to at least give us some time. So I would totally understand postponing it at the very minimum to like September 26th, like the SEC had already done, even push it back into October, whatever they needed to do to just kind of just put things on pause and say, all right, let's go back to the drawing board and figure it out. But you look at the Pac-12, who seems like they're just, following in the footsteps of whatever the Big Ten's doing. The Pac-12 released their own little breakdown of why they're doing that. And they didn't even touch on that. I can't even remember what that health issue is off the top of my head, the name of it. They didn't even bring that specific, heart issue up. They were just saying, just in general, there's some medical, issues, and we're trying to navigate through those and want to make the smartest decisions, safest decision for everybody. So it kind of seemed like they both kind of countered off of one another and said, well, we just got to make a quick decision. Let's just screw it. Let's just postpone to the spring. It seemed like they just kind of rushed to make a quick, PR decision as opposed to just thinking, what would it even be safer to have 2 college football seasons in one academic year? Like, is that even, to have 2 full seasons and within 10 months of each other? Like, how is that any safer physically on the body than, whatever else? I don't know. There's just so much.
Is there a crazy coincidence about that, though?
What?
It's crazy. Those 2 conferences had players with demands who wanted to union.
That's also true.
That's a crazy coincidence. Maybe they just, one day they woke up and they realized they didn't want to pay their players or really hold themselves accountable at all for these things that their players were asking for. And what do you know? And a few days later, the whole season's been postponed to the spring, which I think we've heard from several coaches and administrators is just truly not a viable option. I can't imagine, especially if the SEC, et cetera, plays in the fall. To have other conferences then play in the spring makes no sense to me.
And that's why I think that the SEC, Big 12, and ACC are doing whatever they can to just kind of make it work, even if they have to do like a makeshift bubble or, kind of a last second, do something different than what they originally planned, but still try to just find a way to make it work. Because I think the general consensus is if it gets postponed to the spring and all 5 Power 5 conferences get postponed to the spring, that we're just not going to have a college football season, because by then we don't know how bad, things could get even worse than what they are right now, where there would be no other option but to cancel the season. And then at that point, then you're playing 2 full seasons in the same year. Like, that's not even remotely safe for these kids either. So I think they're just going through all the options that they possibly can. That's why they postponed. I mean, we're still, I'm trying to do the math, a month and 12 days away from the college football season starting right now. So we still have time to just kind of go back to the drawing board and come up with something, some makeshift season shoot, even if you have to knock it down to 8 games or whatever you have to do. I mean, there's still a way to make it happen. There's still time. I just didn't agree with how quick they made that decision. I think it's something that they just, they need to think this through on either end, whether they do ultimately decide to go to the spring or stay here. I mean, it's just, you got to think a whole lot harder than just, oh, screw it, let's just cancel.
See, I don't think they've even considered a plan if they've, they have the month and 12 days, like you said, but what has shown us in the last 4 months that they know what they're doing in the last month or in the next month? So what's happened over the last 4 months has been the colleges teetering on, or the schools and power conferences teetering on the edge of knowing that the season is always one slip up away from being canceled. And they haven't really made any progressive steps to go the opposite way of that. So I don't think the Pac-12 and Big Ten canceling was like a PR. I think it was them coming down to the last second and finally being like, look, we've known from the beginning that we're going to be able to do this. We're here now. We know we're not going to be able to do this now. There's nothing that tells us in the next month that anything within college football or America in general is going to be any better. In all reality, it's probably going to be worse in a month and 12 days than it is right now in terms of the virus impact and everything. And I mean, football, it's just, I don't know logistically how you can do a bubble with that. And I definitely don't know how you can manage to do that in the next 40 days.
Right.
As far as trying to do it in the spring, obviously, like, you can't have a summer or a spring and a fall football season unless you wanted to start doing spring forever. Just start doing spring or players union.
Yeah.
And I think it's all gonna eventually come down to that type of stuff. Once we kind of navigate our way through all of this, if we somehow do, it's going to come down to players being like, we're not going to start doing any of this stuff unless you pay us. And you're probably right about it's not a coincidence that the players were making demands and those conferences started to wise up. So if that voice continues to get larger as it has in the last few days, you're not going to see the SEC and ACC follow suit.
My biggest issue with it is this past week there was a report that that the Big Ten had that last second call on Monday night or Tuesday night, I think, whatever the night before them officially postponing the spring, where
their emergency meeting,
that one, the night before, it was canceled. It was not postponed, it was canceled. And there were reports coming out of it that the Big Ten hadn't even thought of the possibility of playing in the spring for the 4 months leading up to this point. They had been just assuming that fall was going to work, and then when they realized that fall just simply wasn't going to go, they said, oh, well, screw it, cancel it, we're done. They didn't even think back in March, okay, this might be something we need to consider postponing, pushing things back. All right, okay, let's scrap the fall. This is obviously not going to work right now. What can we do right now to make sure that a spring season or even a January 1st season, it can be a winter season on, where if they play inside, domes where it could be heated, I don't know what the case is, but they had all this time leading up to it to say, okay, let's have a contingency plan in place. Let's look ahead to the spring. How can we make this happen safely and responsibly? And it's very apparent. We heard in the, after this emergency meeting that they didn't even consider this possibility. They were coming into this to cancel, not to postpone. And that's what I had a big problem with. They didn't even have a backup plan in place.
But I think they could have also had a contingency plan in place if we had known what we know now months ago. But I'm guilty of it too. In March, when this all happened, I didn't know how long this was going to go on. I thought maybe by the end of summer, like at the latest, it would be back to normal. I certainly didn't think we would be dealing with this into 2021, when all of this first started really blowing up in the United States in like mid-March. So I understand that like maybe in April, they weren't looking ahead to a potential college football season. And so they didn't have the time to say, what are we going to need? What's the organization that we need to put behind this? Who's in charge of making these decisions? And at least in my opinion, I felt like they were just sitting around hoping the virus would go away and it could just be a normal football season.
That's what it was.
Right. And maybe in March and April, I would have done the same thing because we just didn't understand yet how wide reaching and how long lasting this virus was going to be on all of us in terms of just everyday life, much less playing a collegiate contact sport. But now that we're through summer, I feel like we've been pretty aware for the past 8 weeks that this could be a lot longer than we originally thought. And so to me, the disappointing part is that these last 8 weeks, there hasn't been a unified effort to figure this out. What do we need to do? How do we keep the players safe? How do we keep the players happy? How are we all getting on the same page? And that's what I hope that college basketball has seen happen. And I hope that college basketball is like, wait, they wasted all this time thinking things could just be normal. And now their whole season's postponed or potentially canceled. And so how do we work ahead now to not make that same mistake? So I wrote about this on KSR a few days ago, but I think that the website, yeah, that's a flex and a plug. Check it out. But I do think that college basketball needs to be prepared to have a plan like yesterday. Like, there's no reason for them to try to wait until October and see if things are back to normal where we can have a normal full basketball season, because that's just honestly not going to happen. And that would be naive of them to act like that. So with that being said, do we think they're working on a plan for a college basketball bubble? Jack, you wrote an article about this. I know we talked about it a little bit last week. We talked about it a little bit last week, more of sort of like in a hypothetical in terms of like, would Lexington be a good fit, or would they want to go to a different SEC town or whatever. But now I think this actually could be a real possibility, especially if they were able to pass like the NLI, sort of regulations or whatever, because I don't think players are going to be able to agree to a situation like this without being able to profit in some way. But I do think a bubble for collegiate sports is possible if they start now. Like, they won't be able to get a bubble together in 3 weeks. You just can't.
And that's why I have appreciated that the NCAA, through that March Madness Twitter account, the NCAA senior vice president, Dan Gavitt, he's of basketball specifically. I think he had Mitch Barnhart on this past week. So 2 weeks ago, he went on there and said, if there's basketball being played safely anywhere in the world, we will find a way to play college basketball. Pretty optimistic on his front. I was like, okay, well, sounds like they at least have something in their mind of a potential plan. And then there was, I believe it was John Rothstein put out the report that they're kind of sort of considering what a bubble would look like, that type of idea. And then so we had this show last Wednesday. We talked about it as kind of yeah, I guess they'd have the facilities, but I just don't think that's a possibility. And then, so I went on KSR and I kind of I wrote 2,000 words. It started as almost like a joke, like, okay, there's no way this is going to work, but this is how I would plan it in my head if this were to happen. And by the time I got to the very end of it, I was like, this could work.
You'd sold yourself. You were like, I'm full of great ideas.
This could work. And I think, outside of, they have the facilities, there's 2 hotels attached to, through a walkway and technically attached to Rupp Arena, on top of the Joe Kraft Center, Memorial Coliseum. There's basketball courts everywhere across campus. But the biggest thing that the NCAA, the very next week after I wrote this, had this exact same time frame that it would be, mid-November, get on campus, or wherever it is, Nashville, Atlanta, wherever they want it to be. They go quarantine from mid-November during, I think it would be, that's when they're starting the virtual learning before Thanksgiving. So they'd already be on virtual learning, so they don't need to be physically in a classroom at that point anyway. So you get there mid-November, quarantine till, Thanksgiving. The weekend after Thanksgiving, you start some exhibition intra-conference play if you want. And then from there, you can play a full 2-month season, I think 18 conference games if you want to, and finish by the beginning of February. So they might need to learn, play more than 2 games a week or whatever the case is. But you could do a normal season the way that they've been doing, Saturday, Tuesday games like we see every single year with Kentucky during SEC play. They could play a full conference slate in 2 months. You could get in and out in 2 months, and then by the end of it, the NCAA on their end can be thinking of an NCAA tournament bubble that they acknowledge it. I think Mark Emmert acknowledged that they're already in the process of thinking that. So you do a conference-only bubble and then an NCAA tournament bubble, and there you go. You have at least some sort of a college basketball season where you can crown a champion. I think that they need to have that contingency plan in place right now if we want to, so we're not in this same boat that we are with college football.
Well, I think that's the issue right there is we're going to have to rely on a leadership committee that we've seen in the exact same entity, but in a different sport, has completely failed. They didn't even try to, once The NCAA canceled college basketball back in March. That day, they should have started to figure out how they would figure and plan. Because to Maggie's point, when this all happened in March, not exactly many people understood that this is what was going to happen, but that was still out there. This possibility right now was still a thing. It was still alive, and the fact that the people in the leadership positions flat out refuse to acknowledge it, and even to this point, it almost seems like they're just now starting to understand the gravity of what's going on. So for it's easy as you set up an NCAA bubble and a conference bubble, but can they do that? Are they willing to do that? And I think the other big issue is what we've talked about, is that the kids are going to have to get paid if we're doing bubbles. And the NCAA,
really agree.
To this point, the NCAA has shown me zero reason to believe that they will go forth with something like that. Even when rules are set to be in place a year from now, they don't like to they won't bump up those rules. They don't even have rules like that set in place that they want to do eventually. They don't want in any way or shape or form to admit that these kids are actual workers instead of amateurs. And a bubble would admit that. It would pretty much destroy their entire infrastructure of what they've built over the last 50. So establishing a bubble, the NCAA can do it because they have the money to do it. But they're going to have to either tell everyone that they've been hypocrites for the last however long, which who knows if they want to do that, or we're going to have to rely on the leadership that we have not seen prove themselves to be worthy of their position, take advantage of this situation and try and navigate through it somehow.
And here's the other thing. If there's a men's college basketball bubble, there's going to have to be a women's college basketball bubble.
Working in the WNBA.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that with the WNBA, but the WNBA also makes money. Women's basketball at the collegiate level is not typically a revenue-generating sport. I mean, I'm sure there are some schools where maybe that's the case, but across the board, that's not true. And so that's just another sacrifice the NCAA is going to have to buy in on if they're saying, okay, we can put this time and money and resources and effort and teamwork into establishing a bubble that's safe and reliable for the men's basketball programs across the country, whether it's the conference one or March Madness one down the line. But are we willing and able to put that same time, effort, money, resources into the women's side as well? And again, to Zach's point, I don't know if we've seen that they are, but they would have to be.
And I would be willing to bet that there's not a women's college basketball season. And I think there's only, because they've canceled every sport besides football already for fall. So right off the bat, you've made the point, you've clarified that football is the only money generator. It's the only thing worth playing. And even that. So college basketball, men's college basketball obviously brings in money. Women's basketball, not as much. So it's going to come down to, if women's basketball doesn't bring, or if a bubble system wouldn't be viable for the NCAA to make money, they're not going to do it. And I honestly I feel like even college basketball would be a little bit difficult to do that. With college football, you got all the TV rights and everything will make you some money. But with football, they're definitely going to try and have fans, some sort of fans. Basketball is just not going to happen. It just seems really hard for something that wouldn't bring in that much money for them, even though the women's team deserves to play. And if the men's team were going to play, the women's team should absolutely play. That's just not going to be the case with the NCAA because that's not how they treat these things.
As you're talking, it's starting to almost make more sense for the women's college basketball, especially the SEC, to play in Lexington. You'd think of it like if they set up in Memorial and have the two Joe Kraft Center courts and the Memorial Coliseum and the Rupp Arena, all the facilities, I think that would be less of an argument. Right now I think the WNBA is playing at IMG Academy down in Orlando, which is, it's a high school it's a prep school academy. I think that would be a pretty freaking sweet gig for women's college basketball to play in the Kentucky basketball facilities and all that. And because I think there was some backlash whenever I posted that possibility of doing it in Lexington. They're like, well, all the other schools would complain about it not being fair and all that stuff. They'd want to be in Nashville or Atlanta, a centralized location. But I'm just saying it makes way too much sense to not at least make an attempt at it. If you think you can if the NCAA thinks they can make some bit of money, especially at a place like Kentucky, where all eyes would be on that product, you got to at least think about it, at least try to make that work. But Yeah, I think the only way to make a college basketball season work at this point, as things are right now, is to at least try the bubble plan. But
Yeah.
I agree. And there are a lot of questions, obviously, with what that would look like. But at least for the NBA, I mean, they figured it out. We've got 4 weeks in a row now with 100% negative tests, and Zach, you were skeptical at the beginning, just like you were, still about college sports. But I think Adam Silver's gonna come through. He's gonna deliver. He's gonna make Zach an optimist here. And how happy have you been with what we're seeing in the bubble down in Orlando?
Well, it's definitely been a lot better than I think most people would have expected. And I think one of the tests you're going to start seeing now is we've had, so the playoffs, or a bunch of teams got sent home yesterday. Like the Suns, like all the teams after their games were over and they figured out their fate, like the Suns, Pelicans, whoever else was down there, they all left. So if I had to guess, I'd say all those, they're already gone. Like the second they left, they showered and they got out of there.
Yeah.
They had their bags packed already beforehand. It was kind of nuts.
So now you're going to see outside family members and friends and stuff come in, and they're going to allow so many, or like every player gets so many people that they get to bring in. So that's when that's going to be a huge factor going forward, just because the NBA players, it's a lot easier to patrol, but a bunch of additional people who aren't as particularly under the same pressure and scrutiny of it all, a little bit different scenario. So we'll see how all that goes, and if they can continue to go through it like how they have been, there's no reason that this shouldn't keep working. And I kind of want to point out that, we've talking about wearing masks like during the games and stuff like that. I don't think that's more of an optics thing. I legitimately think that is a preventative measure that they actively take, like with Popovich and the older coaches actually wearing them, and people behind the scenes there, like behind even the plexiglass and stuff, because not everyone that's in that building necessarily is, because you've got outside employees and stuff that come in and out. So there are very, very unlikely, and I would say for the most part, the intern from Disney who's, cleaning the toilets is probably nowhere near Greg Popovich. But at the same time, I think it's that little bit of a preventative measure that's going into it. And yeah, it is an optics thing as well. But I definitely think that there is they are buying into all of this, and they are enforcing it 100% every step of the way. And that's why it's working.
Are we concerned about them letting in family members and these, long-standing relationships, additional people into the bubble? I mean, I wait to see who gets in the bubble, because I hope a few random people get in that we're like, what's he doing there?
That could be the end of the bubble. So I'm very curious as well.
Why can't like Jack Nicholson be, if he's best friends with I can't even think one of the coaching staff guys on with the Lakers? Why couldn't he get in? Why couldn't
bring D Wade? He's friends with LeBron.
That's what I'm saying. They're saying it has to be a long-standing friendship. It didn't have to say wife, didn't have to say girlfriend, didn't have to say whatever the case is. It was just a long-standing friend. That
Devin Booker's gone. Sorry, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So yeah, but I think when you look into the rules, I think they have to get to Orlando, stay for 7 days outside of the bubble, quarantine. I think it's like 7 straight negative tests or whatever it is. They have to test daily. Then they get in, quarantine by themselves for an additional 3 days, 4 days, and then so they won't even be able to see a playoff start Monday or Sunday or Monday.
Well, the play-in round is Saturday, and there could be a second one Sunday, so I think it's Monday.
So I think so. Monday is the days are all up in my head. 17th, whatever it is. They won't even be able to see family members, friends, partners, whatever it is, till August 31st. So we're still talking a long way away to negative tests, quarantine away from everybody. So it should, in an ideal world, it should work the same way that it did with the players. But
right, and I think it also works because they're keeping the number of people in the bubble about the same. I mean, these extra people aren't coming in until teams and all this team personnel with losing teams or teams that aren't qualified for the playoffs are leaving. So, I mean, I don't think the number of people is getting any bigger. In fact, it'll probably end up being a little bit smaller if people end up bringing just 1 or 2 people instead of their allotted, like I think the number was 4, unless you have, several children or something like that. So I think from a numbers perspective, it makes sense. I hope it works because the bubble's been awesome. The games we've seen over the last couple of days especially have been amazing basketball games, and that's what I've been missing so much over the last couple of months are like truly awesome sporting events. Like I've bought in to like the Ocho and to bull riding. And I've watched some soccer games for the first time ever. I watched one hockey game. I tried baseball for like one full day. But finally,
You gave it your all one day.
yeah, I really tried this year. And so, but what I was really missing obviously was sports that we could all really dive into and just for me, obviously it's football and basketball, and right now we don't know if we're going to ever see football, but I'm really excited that we've gotten such high level games and that everyone is taking this so seriously.
Yeah. Yesterday was the first time I felt March Madness vibes
Yeah.
since.
I thought you were going to say genuine happiness.
Oh,
No, don't get that far.
we're still not there yet.
We're not close to there yet. The bubble's
We're
still
still inside.
But yeah, I mean, it's been going great. I mean, I like kind of back to your point to the numbers thing. Yeah, all those people are going in. I think like the numbers are doing so well, or they've established the bubble so well that they're even allowing the teams that are in there to bring in more coaches. I think they each get to bring in like an extra 2 coaches or a member of the staff or something like that. So, they're doing their thing, and it helps that Devin Booker went 8-0 in the bubble, and I had all these reasons to root and cheer, and Keldon Johnson came out of nowhere and had a huge. So there was a bunch of reasons outside of just the fact that basketball were back for me to be excited, and these playoffs are going to be going like very, very interesting. Some of these first round matchups are like conference final matchups, so it's gonna be really fun.
Zach, did you see right before we went on what Shams broke? The news Shams broke?
No.
The Jim Boylan stuff, or
the
Players Association thing?
No, what are the Delete Eight?
Yeah.
Delete Eight bubble. We're gonna get the bottom tier bubble. I think that's starting in September, right?
Yeah.
The last 8 teams that didn't make it are going to get their own bubble in September. So bring on the horror. Oh, you get your Cavs. You get to watch your Cavs again.
He's like, they're not my Cavs.
Does that make you happy?
It's Kevin Porter Jr. and Darius Garland, but
Yeah.
other than that,
go.
you can miss me with that Delete Eight thing.
It's more. Yeah, I think it's.
Funny.
Well, I mean, to their
point.
if the next NBA season gets pushed back or whatever, the teams that didn't, those 8 teams wouldn't be able to compete for a full like calendar year or something. They haven't done any full practices or full scrimmages or anything since March. So you have to at least give them
the bubble can work. So if you've proven it can work, might as well do it on a smaller scale.
It have to be a small, obviously a small scale version of it, and they wouldn't get all the amenities that the winners got, that the top 22 guys got. But I think they at least have to come up with something to make sure that they don't have a full calendar year off. I mean, we're nothing there right now.
Some of these weird injuries too have been popping up, like the Ben Simmons thing, like just
Mm-hmm.
weird like tissue injuries where it's obvious that it's just these guys haven't played for so long, and luckily we haven't seen nearly as many as I honestly thought we would. But
I thought the same thing. Yeah, we got to get.
Understand that point. You got to get these guys playing games and getting into some sort of shape. They can't go.
I mean, nothing. Just if it's a glorified practice, it's at least something.
Yeah.
Right. I agree. So real quick before we wrap this up, do we want to do a quick round of pit and peaks?
Yes, because I have a great one.
Ooh, do you want to go first?
Sure, absolutely.
Hit us with it.
So, I always get mixed up whenever I'm thinking about it, but my peak, absolutely. Last night, I went to a drive-in comedy show, and it was the coolest thing I've ever done in my life. It was phenomenal. It was in LaGrange, Kentucky, middle of nowhere. LaGrange is well-known in Louisville, but it's where this drive-in theater was in the middle of nowhere. The line was backed up like miles. You got in, they lined everybody up. The comedian is Bert Kreischer. He's the big fat guy with the big belly on Netflix. You've seen his face and his stomach several times. I'm sure. Oh, he has been on KSR as well.
Plug.
So he pulls his big old tour bus up in the back. They have a stage set up, and everybody's in their cars, socially distant. They have a 6-foot pool noodle separating cars, so it's a socially distant lot. And he does his comic set up front on stage with a big old drive-in movie theater screen. So everybody in the, parking lot can see him
That's
perform.
awesome.
It was amazing. There was a concession stand, so it felt like a real drive-in movie theater. You could have, popcorn and candy. I snuck in bourbon, which it says you're not supposed to, but I had a great time personally. It was
Wow.
amazing.
I'm
I had
glad
a
we're
fantastic
advocating
time.
for drinking and driving. That's really good.
I did not. It's not just me. I didn't go by myself. My wife drove. It was fantastic. She was sitting there laughing while I was drinking the night away. It was fantastic.
Well, you were so excited about it. Unless you have a pit you really want to talk about, I kind of don't want to bring you down. Like, you seem so
Nope.
happy.
No
All right.
pits.
Well,
No pits.
nice. On that note, you brought up Katie, and so I'm gonna say my peak of the week is getting invited to your wedding celebration. Let's go. That would be a fun social outing. The first one I've had in I don't know, years.
Years.
uh,
Zack has an open invitation, but he has yet to accept or deny said request. It's not looking good on the Zack front, but
Teetering.
totally understand. We also, while we're on the topic, we do need to come up with a final count sometime soon. So if we could get a final count in the near future,
I'll send you my RSVP here shortly.
sounds good. Thank you. Appreciate
Look
it.
at that. The Macks being real friends. I love it. Zack, you got a pit or a peak?
Yeah, and they're actually intertwined. So my peak is obviously, more bubble stuff. Devin Booker and the Phoenix Suns went 8-0. They had less than a 0.1% chance to make the playoffs. They actually still didn't. But the fact that they even went 8-0. I also want to make the point, though, the fact that the Suns went 8-0 and still didn't make the playoffs is probably the best reason to say that they shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Yeah.
But that was awesome. Booker was almost my MVP until Damian Lillard did his thing the last 3 games. So I have
Dame time, baby. Dame time.
Dame's MVP, Maggie's best friend. But Booker and the Suns, they proved that they are here to stay. Where it's right here, this guy. So I'm excited for them next year. I'm interested to see if it was just kind of a bubble influence where they were the last 4 games or so they were playing teams that didn't exactly play their starters for the entire second half of the games. So we'll see if they're really here to stay and whatnot. But I like the core of what I've seen in Phoenix, and that was definitely the peak. The pit was they didn't make the playoffs, so it was all kind of for nothing.
Although, didn't they get penciled in as the number 10 draft pick? Isn't that the case? Because
Yeah, they still get well. I'm not sure actually how that.
I thought I read
the standings with the draft.
The NBA locked the pre-bubble standings as for the non-lottery for the lottery teams. I think whatever it was.
There was something with the Celtics and the Memphis pick I saw because it was still fluctuating.
Yeah, because I don't remember what the exact case was, but I read somewhere that it was like no matter what the Suns could lose
lottery pick.
The Suns could miss out on the playoffs and still get the number 10 overall pick in the draft. And I think if you're gonna make a splashy bubble appearance with 8-0 kind of Devin Booker's superstar breakout. I mean
the Twitter account phenomenal.
Yeah, people actually got to see him.
They had their best stretch of basketball in the last decade, and their reward is a lottery pick. That's not bad, I guess.
Not horrible. Not horrible.
Not bad.
This
has been
better.
Another fun day for us. I think we need to wrap it up. At least I have to go. If you all have anything else you want to say, you can stay on here and keep chatting, I guess. But I think I'm going to call it. It's been a good day of the Macks. Anyone else have anything they want to add?
We're good, baby. We're good.
All right. Next time, Jack, we expect you to be back to repping the brand. I mean, you honestly really let the Twins down today.
Bullying works. Never.
I
wear a different KSR ensemble.
Okay.
Make you feel better.
That's something exciting. That's something to look forward to. Thank you so much for that. Have a good one, everybody.